I hope you can all hear me. It feels so strange speaking quietly into this while you're all so far away. But I'm getting some nods. Of course, you can't hear me. I remember this from last year. Okay, well, gonna have to really listen up, guys.
Yeah, just turn your volumes down.
Yeah, maybe. I might have to speak quite loudly. Anyway, hello everyone, and thank you for coming to our talk. Liz and I are co-founders of the Mind Field, providing therapy for the humanitarian aid sector worldwide, and Reem, Alessandra, and Helen are three of our wonderful therapists. I mean, I think the initial question that introduces our talk, which is what am I doing here, not here, but in the field, is something that I think all of our patients ask at one point or another. And in every initial meeting that I have with anyone in the sector, I always say, why did you go into the sector? And I often get kind of quite a shocked response, either a sort of no idea, eye roll, or a kind of unique and complex reason for choosing aid and development. But I think that in common, everyone has an urge to do good and help and to give something back. Some people say for the travel, occasionally even money, although that's rarer, obviously. You are automatically in a position of power. And I think that the desire to help might stem from a need for help, really, and a feeling of helplessness that you sort of get rid of by helping others. And something quite complicated seems to me to happen when people go into the field. The conscious motivations can be achieved to some degree. I mean, it might be disappointing how little you can do, but on the whole, they can be achieved. But the feelings of helplessness and distress that we are unconsciously trying to escape by going into the sector remain, and then lead to all this kind of resentment in these abusive relationships with the job and all this kind of stuff. Alessandra, do you think people expect to feel different once they're making a difference?
Thank you, Anna. Well, I was thinking about...
But I can't hear you.
Sorry? Oh, yes. I was thinking about, the definition that Freud, so like we are in history of psychoanalysis here, was utilizing for altruism. So he was defining it as one of the most evolved form of defense mechanism. So yeah, I have my, reservation around it. But absolutely, Anna, to go back to what you were saying, and thinking about my own experience when I was working in the field, and at a certain point, I decided to get into therapy. But also thinking about now as a therapist, about some of my patients, and every history is different, is individual. But yes, sometimes we do to other people what was not done for us. So like this aim to help others when, perhaps we didn't get it, like earlier stages, so we were not seen, and some fear, again, that we do overcome when we do this kind of job in the field. Having said that, I am also absolutely convinced on the genuinity of our intentions when we were into the field. But I think that, access to therapy, going to therapy, it just gives you, in many things, but it gives you like more of an idea of reasons why you're doing something, reasons if there are patterns, and it just allows you to have more choice and to be like true to your needs. And yes,
I mean, you were going to talk about some patients that you have at the moment, one of who's in the West Bank, and actually, I'm not sure if all of us do, but I've got 3 patients currently in Gaza and Israel. You've got 1, and you were gonna bring an example from someone, I think.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, without breaking confidentiality, I think all of us have patients at the moment in some kind of active conflict. And so, yeah, to or patient who work in camps, as I did in my last job, in refugee camps or in hotspots, etc. So it really brings home, how the struggle, between your personal aims, your personal ideas, your commitment, and the system, and why you are doing what you're doing, and what are you putting yourself through, and what can you actually do for yourself, for other people, and when it's also time to understand that.
But you have to be quite highly self-aware to notice those things in the first place, I think. I had a guy come for his first session 3 days ago, and he was having panic attacks for the first time in his life. And he had been working in about 15 countries, including South Sudan and Bangladesh and Ukraine. And he didn't understand what was going on with him. He said, am I going mad? Am I psychotic? And I said, well, having been to all these places and done all this work, it'd be weird if you didn't feel a bit off sometimes. And he was so kind of relieved. And it's such a sort of basic point, really, that it'd be weird if you didn't have a reaction, if you weren't disturbed by the stuff you're seeing. But actually, in order to think it, you've got to already be at a certain stage of self-reflection, I think. I mean, obviously, so coming back to our sort of theme, obviously the living conditions a lot of these missions are not normal. And that in itself gives rise to a lot of this toxicity that I think, Reem, you were kind of touching on with abusive relationships with the organization itself, and the kind of defenselessness and dependency that you get in abusive, couples relationships, basically, that go backwards and forwards between the organization and the person. Helen, is that something you recognize from your experience?
Yes, I think it is an incredibly intense environment for the people that are working within it, and you're often living in group accommodation, making very intense friendships, which come and go with all the transition. But I think when it comes to the romantic relationships, the more emotionally intimate relationships, it's not a healthy environment for them, and it's really, really difficult. The longer people are in the field, it's sort of caught between this desire to be in a more connected, deeper relationship, but the sort of practical challenges of that. So from that side, it is really difficult and I have so many clients that are struggling with being on their own at this mid-30s, early 30s, mid-30s point and onwards. And what seems to become the main relationship is the organisation or is the sector itself. And it sort of holds you in there a bit like an abusive relationship where you can't, it's really, really hard to get out of it.
You said that you'd been, you actually say army brat, which is not what I would have called you, but you said that you grew up with army parents, moving around a lot, which was quite good training for the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because I imagine, I don't know about this, but I imagine the army is also a sort of parent.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That is, you can identify with, yes, I was an army brat. I'd moved 18 times by the time I was 18. It was very familiar. I think there's lots of people in the industry that have had these kind of upbringings, and they're very good at temporary relationships, very good at adapting. I think the most secure people don't stay in the aid industry very long because it's just so destabilizing. So, obviously I would have to reflect long and hard about what it was that I was running away from.
It's a big thing to say, though, that secure people don't stay.
That's my kind of observation.
People stay a whole lifetime, don't they? I know what you mean, though. I haven't ever had a patient from the sector who isn't talking about leaving. Even if they don't leave, it's a discussion. It's just something that's constantly there.
But can I
Liz, oh, go on. Yeah.
when it comes to leave, it's really hard to leave, and I think that whole process of what do I do next, who am I outside of this context, is a really challenging question for people.
Oh, I know. I mean, you get people who speak 5 languages and are so well qualified and say, oh, I could never get another job, you know, and they're going to give me a pension. And you just think, what? It is amazing how melded people get, I think. Liz, does the what the hell am I doing here question reach a kind of peak of intensity?
Oh God. Well, I've been in the industry for a couple of decades now, and I think it's sort of ebbs and flows, really. I've had my moments of pure panic, feeling like if I don't change my job, if I don't change where I am, I'm gonna miss out on all these other things that normal people do, you know, have kids, that sort of thing. But then inevitably, I get drawn back in because it is such an important, I think, mission-based sort of drive that we end up getting, and it's just a cool job, gives you lots to talk about, gives you,
I was going to say the normal people are sitting at home with their kids, wishing they were somewhere exciting,
right?
contributing, I guess.
Yeah, but I've had those moments where I have escaped before, and left, and then found myself right back in on a different assignment, and I thought, well, maybe I just needed those few weeks or those few months to just recharge and,
Well, you're being very positive, but in the little notes of what you were going to say, I've got, do I still love what I'm doing? And many days, no.
Yeah, that's... Okay, so coming back to reality, yes, do I still love what I do? And many days, when I reflect on that, the answer is no, because I do feel worn out by it. I do feel like I have missed certain life moments that other people have and I don't. And quite frankly, you get tired. And so there are definitely days when I feel like, what in the hell am I doing here?
Yeah. And I think then the question for us as therapists becomes, what can I do about that?
Yeah.
How can I either feel comfortable with the homelessness and dislocation and the pressure and enjoy the travel and the people and the job satisfaction, or how can I shift into a different kind of life that brings me what I want? And obviously, we would all say, get therapy. It's time, people. But, Reem, can you help us think a bit more seriously about that?
Yeah. I mean, at the moment, I work at a university with students. And, I think, students and with a lot of people who come as well in the industry is that there's that therapy is often a place where people come to when they've reached the crisis point and everything is falling apart. So for me, I try and think about, well, what can be done to kind of, not to fix everything, but in a way to kind of like gain a bit more awareness so you can slow down that acceleration towards the crisis. And I think a big part of it is recognizing that, yes, things are difficult. Yes, things are challenging. And how do you then kind of learn to live with the uncomfortable? Because at the end of the day, some things are just going to be there. They're not going to change. They're not going to, they might shift in different times in your life, but they're going to remain. And I think it's about accepting that. It's about accepting that, yes, sometimes things can be a bit shit, but what can I do about it? Is there positivity? Is there, some light at the end of the tunnel? So it's about trying to find a way of not getting rid of those uncomfortable feelings. We can use like various defense mechanisms to do that. We can act out. We can compartmentalize our feelings and think, okay, well, this is what I need to do in order to function. And that's fine. It works temporarily. You need to do that in order to kind of get back your life, right? But it's just temporary, isn't it? So yeah, I think a big part of it is acknowledging those feelings and the thoughts that come.
and acknowledging them as being valid, and that's your experience.
Yeah, and also accepting that you are going to be a different person. I always use a sort of crass example of, if you'd been a journalist at the liberation of Auschwitz or something, you wouldn't then just skip off and have an ordinary life. You are going to be changed forever. And I think a lot of people try to stay the person they were before they saw whatever they saw or heard whatever they heard, and it's impossible. And so people come to us with all these symptoms basically saying, I want to go back to before. And we end up saying the not very comforting thing, which is that's not going to be possible. This is you now, and you're a different person. There are some advantages to it. You're probably going to be more compassionate, but you're going to be messier. You can't see the worst of man's humanity to man and then skip off and be fine. You're going to have all the things that people call PTSD, which I think is just a massive term for normal response to something really horrible happening. And then you kind of become different. So I mean, we would all agree that the collaborative thinking of psychotherapy uncovers unconscious motivations and brings us a clarity that answers all these questions that we're talking about asking ourselves. But I think people are very scared of what the answer might be. Because the answer might be, leave the sector, have a baby, do something different, leave your partner. And a lot of people worry about becoming really boring as well. I often hear this, would Dostoevsky have written Crime and Punishment if he'd had psychoanalysis, But maybe it would have been even better. Alessandra, what stops us going into therapy? Because I think I think people hate the idea of it somehow.
Oh, that's a very important question. And again, I can relate, to myself when I started therapy and to, all my patients now. And again, in my experience, people, when they reach out for therapy, they know very well that there is something not working. They might not, it might not come across as sadness, unhappiness. It might come across as anxiety, as panic attacks, as conflicts with relationships and with the friends, etc. But they know that there is something that is not working anymore, and they usually want to change. But there is always this, this fear, this doubt, and now what? And I was smiling because actually, leaving the sector, having a baby, retrain is something that some of us have done. I did it. Some other, but it's not. As I said, every people has got their own trajectory. So it's in the end, is really about making conscious what you need instead of perhaps covering up, enduring, folding on. And I always think about it later, this shall pass, etc. It's just about choice.
But there's such a fear of doing that, though, isn't there? I mean, there's just such a fear of not being able to do the things that you could do before. I always have people kind of saying, okay, so if I've gone into the sector as a defense against my own helplessness, does that mean I'm a horrible person? Actually, I have one patient who's always saying this. You make me sound like such a horrible person. But saying you're not a horrible person, it's just a bit more complicated than be nice. I mean, you're just a person, a complex person. There's more going on.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think it's really hard for people who are in a helping role to think of themselves as needing help or wanting help. So, and everybody is looking at
not being purely good as well.
Suffering all around them. How can I be needing help when there's people so much worse off than me? So even asking for help is you feel guilty, prioritizing yourself. And that I think that really gets...
And I think that's fair enough. It's true. There are people worse off. We're all very lucky right here, right now. It's true. But if you're a kind of promiscuous alcoholic with an abusive relationship with your organization who can't sleep and hasn't had a break for 6 years, how much help are you actually providing? I mean, this is the sort of terrible cliche of putting your own oxygen mask on first, isn't it? it's true that, but then again, it's always true. I mean, you could be being tortured in some horrible cellar, and the person next to you is being tortured worse, and so you feel like you can't say anything. I mean, people like to minimize whatever they're going through, don't they?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was thinking again, sorry, yeah, about my patient who are, in war zones, and there is always this sense of, what are we talking about? That people are, are dying and they can't pay for their therapy, etc. But yeah, equally, what kind of help is going to be if you are just feeling so bad about yourself? Who are you going to help? What is the motive? So, you were just going to join a number of streets of people who are desperate for it and traumatized, because I think it's also important to stress the potential traumatization of this kind of environments. It is it's not what people don't always end up with PTSD, traumatized, but there is a lot of potential for traumatization in doing this.
I almost disagree. I think everyone ends up with some kind of symptom that comes under the heading. You can't have no symptoms. It just doesn't happen. I think. But what I was going to say, it's nice to see quite a lot of men here, actually. I was imagining our fully female group, and men are much worse at coming for help. No, massive surprise there. But it is, as therapists, it's really difficult because men come post-breakdown, women come before. And the men who come in are terribly ill. And you can see that if we got them a year earlier or even 6 months earlier, it could have been okay. So women just come much earlier. So whenever I see a message from a man, I'm often kind of thinking, okay, right, turn on, because he's going to be quite unwell. And it's universally true so far. And in fact, the man I was talking about who came the other day with this feeling of becoming psychotic really is fine. He really is fine. He is just exhibiting the symptoms of having been in the sector, but he's lived with this fear and anger for so long that it has burst out as this. And I really felt he's going to be fine in not very long, but he has come so late that he's broken down. He's actually left work for a while, and there would have been no need for this. But men do come in late. Any comments, ladies? No men on the panel, noticeably.
No, and I find what's interesting is if I look at my private practice, say face-to-face back in the UK, I'd say 50% of my clients are men. But with my aid sector clients, it's a really tiny fraction of it. So I think that whole helping, that idea of not needing help and being strong is very much part of the sector.
Being strong, maybe I actually see it as a kind of vulnerability. There seems to be much more shame. I meet shame, and it's sort of really heartbreaking. You're nodding.
Strong. That's the idea of needing to be strong.
Absolutely.
Boring
I think
everything.
shame is something like universal for us as humans that we try and avoid. But I think more so for men, there's this real sense of you needing to kind of be masculine, needing to be the caregiver and the one who protects. And when you aren't able to do that, then it can feel really, really hard, and that you're just really on your own, and that you failed essentially as a person. But I think just going back to what you were saying earlier, I was thinking about how someone who coming to therapy and feeling like they've gone mad. I think actually, you know what? Sometimes those people are probably the sanest people.
Yes. That's what
because it's coming out rather than staying in.
Sort of fine. Yeah. I'm not sure. I think you're psychopathologizing the guys a bit with if you need to be strong. It seems to me more that just no one's ever really spoken to them before in a normal, open way. I don't think they come in all butch like, oh my God, I should have given care. They seem terribly lost and in an awful state. I just think nobody in the environment in which they work really thinks to go to them to say, hi, yeah, how's it going? So I'm not sure. Anyway, we were going to have to go to questions if there are any. Does anyone have any questions? I'm not quite sure how we're going to do it microphone-wise, but...
I think if you have a question, just raise your hand. We do have someone who is walking around with an extra mic.
Yeah, but then how are we going to hear the question? I think if you have a question, come and see us at our booth. That's what I would say. We're over there in the far right-hand corner. Oh, there is someone with a question.
There is someone.
Diane, do you know, right at the back there.
What Eric like? Well, how about I give you this headset?
Man alive.
One moment, I'm having a little... There you go. It's nice. Okay. Can everyone hear me? Okay. My name's Dr. Teresa Castillo. I'm with an INGO called Health Rate International.
I can't hear you. I'm sorry. I tried to put headphones on, but I still didn't get it.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Others are saying okay, so I'm just going to move forward. So I was just introducing myself. My name's Dr. Teresa Castillo. I am with an INGO called Health Rate International. And thank you so much for this panel. It's a very critical issue that I myself struggle with, and we are also looking to address for our organization as a whole. So I will visit your booth later to talk to you about how I can support our staff throughout the world. Two questions come to mind. One, how do you deal with adherence and making sure that your clients are coming back again and again? Or do you find that once someone comes to you that they tend to stick with treatment? Two, have you worked more broadly with organizations to integrate this into their staff wellness, staff welfare plans? Thank you.
Rest to the scene. After 2000
Yeah. I'm being told that you asked where the patients stay in their treatments. Yeah, on the whole, I mean, I try and keep them in. If it's important to have that support and containment, I think. Obviously, some people start and run away, but usually not, because usually, even after one session, there are very noticeable results. I mean, back to the guy I was talking about earlier, he just felt very comforted by hearing that it's normal. I mean, I would say much more than that, of course, but I think with each session, you can feel very tangibly different. So yes, people do tend to stay. I think that in general, 6 months to a year, some people would wildly disagree. CBT would give you 10 sessions. I don't think it works, but
again, I think one of the freeing aspects of therapy is also that you do make a commitment in the sense that you turn up once per week for 50 minutes at the same time. What is not possible, obviously, you are more flexible because of the sector. But yeah, then, you freely decide if you want to leave. And so, yeah, there is this kind of autonomy, agency. So, yes, people who stay for years, people who stay a bit less. But yeah, sometimes people think, do I have to commit for 1, 2, 3, 4 years? It's like, no, we see as we go.
I think it's important to remind people that we're working via video, so we really do see people wherever they are. So they miss sessions far less regularly, and we are very flexible about rescheduling. So as long as you have any kind of connection, we're there. And I think, people in the field often feel terribly isolated, so it can be the only place you're really talking to somebody directly. We're psychotherapists, so this was a 50-minute session, and we're there. Oh, there was another question. What was it?
So she was asking whether we work with organizations, like.
Yeah, we do. Come and see us. I would say come and see us. Come and see us. We do work with organisations, and people buy a package of sessions and stuff. Very much so.
Yeah, I'll just add to that very quickly for those who are representing organizations in the group that yes, we do have a way where we will partner with organizations who, for example, are wishing to support local country nationals places, and as well their expats. So we do have ways that we do this to protect privacy and confidentiality. We have pretty strict rules with how we'll work with organizations. So provided organizations are able to, go by these pretty strict standards that we have, that is something that we do offer, as well as workshops to do awareness raising, especially in cultures where it's very stigmatized to seek help or to have any mental health related concerns. We do awareness raising. We do sort of culturally adapted talks about mental health. So yes, we do have that as well.
But do come and see us as well. So clearly we believe that everyone could benefit from therapy, particularly those of you whose job it is to help others. In order even to begin thinking about doing that, it's important to have yourself together in the kind of environments you will work in, and that can be really hard. You almost certainly are traumatized by what you've seen. You should be. Come and see us at our stand. And do take advantage of our little discount introductory therapy session brochure. Thank you very much. Thank you.